This is the 3.4 Day 2 video for your notes. So we covered this in class, and this was actually our second day on talking about standard form and what it's used for. So in the notes today, we talked about standard form being used to calculate your intercepts. So just as a review on this vocabulary, this is not the first time you've seen this, but your x-intercept is the point at which the graph is actually touching the x-axis. So that x-coordinate of the ordered pair would represent your x-intercept. The y-intercept of a graph is the y-coordinate where your graph is touching the y-axis. So written as an ordered pair, your y-intercept would be 0, comma, a number, and that number would be the y-intercept. And then the reverse of that for the x-intercept, the ordered pair would be a number, comma, 0, because you're on the x-axis, and that would be where your x-intercept occurs. So in the little core concept, which I have on your notes for you, if you look right here, it actually tells you how to use standard form, which is this ax plus by equals c, to calculate your intercepts so that you can graph. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this on the next slide. So on this example that we have here, they're asking us to use intercepts to graph the equation 3x plus 4y equals 12. So I'm going to start by calculating my x-intercept. And in order to calculate your x-intercept, you know that it must have a y-coordinate of 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y, and I'm going to solve for x. So I'm just rewriting the equation. I have 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 12. Now remember, I'm plugging in 0 for y because if I'm on the x-axis, then y has to be 0. So that's what allows me to use this equation to find the x-intercept. So 4 times 0 is 0, so I'm just left with 3x equals 12 once I start simplifying. So then the opposite of multiplying by 3 would be to divide by 3. And when I do that, I find out that the x-intercept of this equation must have been 4. Okay, so I'm going to use this to graph my x-intercept. So I'm going to go to the x-axis and I'm going to put a point on 4. This graph is very small on my screen, so forgive me if it's a little off. So I have an x-intercept of 4. Now they also asked me to use the y-intercept to graph. So I'm using the y-intercept. I'm going to use that standard form once again. And I'm going to plug in a 0 for x this time. So I'm going to have 3 times 0 plus 4y equals 12. So once again, if I'm on the y-axis, then the x-coordinate of that point had to be 0. And that's why I'm plugging in a 0 right here for x and solving for y. 3 times 0 is 0, so I'm left with 4y equals 12. The opposite of multiplying by 4 would be to divide both sides by 4, and that tells me that my y-intercept occurred where y was equal to 3. Now, as we've been graphing, I've told you guys that you only really need 2 points to graph a line. So now I have my y-intercept, which happened at 3, and my x-intercept, which happened at 4, and that's going to allow me to draw a line through those 2 points, which will be the graph of this equation. Okay? So we practiced this throughout the lesson today, so I would like for you to look at the next 2 problems, which are on your notes, which is number 3, which is 2x minus y equals 4, and number 4, which is x plus 3y equals negative 9. I'd like you guys to pause the video and see if you can calculate your x and y intercepts for these 2. Then you can restart the video and check your work with mine. Okay, so if you look at these 2 problems, the first thing that I did on number 3 is I looked for the x-intercept. So remember, to find the x-intercept, I substitute in a 0 for y and I solve for x. And I found out that that x-intercept occurred where x was equal to 2 and y was equal to 0. So I went to 2, 0, and I put a point. Then to find my y-intercept, I plugged in a 0 for x and I solved for y. Don't forget, guys, when y is minus y, that's like there's a little invisible -1 in front of y, and the opposite of multiplying by a -1 was to divide. That's how I got this step right here where 4 got divided by -1. So my y-intercept occurred where x was 0 and y was -4. So at 0, -4, I put a point, and then I drew a line through there. Notice that my line, while it's not exactly straight because I'm freehanding this on my iPad, you guys should be using a straight edge and making sure that your line extends all the way across your coordinate plane. That's going to help us later when we start systems of linear equations. For number 4, I calculated my x-intercept at -9. Notice that was slightly off my graph, so I just estimated out a little ways. And then to find my y-intercept, I got y as -3. So I put a point on -3, and then I extended that line all the way across my coordinate plane. Okay, so this video is fairly short. If you are working on your 3.4 homework, you are almost finished because we've done 2/3 of the lessons. So, if you have any questions, make sure that you either watch the 3.4 homework help video or you come in for tutorials. Y'all have a great night.